Haven't you heard? A queen is on the rise. Wear a mini hat so she can open up your eyes. Join the convo, the podcast is slick. Cop a penny to the spice up your fit, yeah. She's a producer, you can vibe to a beat. She do the most, but she ain't come to do the least. Whether it's the combo or the music you want, find it all here at TiTiTalks.com. Come and stimulate your mind with TiTi Talks. Promise you'll never fall behind when TiTi Talks. The knowledge you're seeking you can find when TiTiTalks.com. So come on and get with TiTi Talks, yeah.
Peace, family. It's your girl TiTi from TiTi Talks. As usual, I'm super excited to bring y'all some fantastic content. So excited about this show. I put sort of a panel together so that we could, really sit down and dissect this midterm election. So I have some really fantastic friends on. I have Dr. Nzinga, I have Dr. Bruce Strobel, I have my sister Liz, and we're all going to add our perspectives. And the beautiful thing about this is I've done podcasts with all of these people at some point in time. Dr. Nzinga was on episode 7 of my podcast where she left the whole studio in flames. Episode 7, y'all check it out. She's talking about the Haitian Revolution. Also, Sister Liz was on episode 5 of my show, and we had a really beautiful conversation about Spike Lee's She's Gotta Have It. I believe we also talked about Gabrielle Union's memoir, Auntie Jennifer Lewis's memoir. Awesome discussion. Y'all go back and check it out. And Dr. Bruce Strobel, good friend of mine, I was actually a guest on his podcast, My Black Reality. I believe I was on episode 3, where we talked about race and sports. So y'all definitely gonna love this conversation. It's provocative, it's incisive, it's passionate, because we all love our people. And make sure that when you do listen to it, if you like it, make sure you share it, comment, tag me in it, so we can keep the dialogue going. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast. It is on iTunes Podcast. It's on Google Play Music. It's on SoundCloud. You could follow me on social media. On Twitter, I'm Miss TiTi Talks. That's MSTITI Talks. On Facebook, TiTi Talks. On Instagram, at TiTi Talks. And you can email me at misstititalks@gmail.com. Either way, I'm pretty accessible. I'd love to hear from you. Y'all sit back, enjoy this conversation. Family, it's your girl TiTi from TiTi Talks. I'm back on the scene with the Gangster Lean with all these fantastic people here with me. Super excited because we got to talk about this damn election, y'all. What? We got to talk about this. So I got some really fantastic friends here that are going to kind of go around the circle and just real quick introduce yourself. Starting with you, Nzinga.
Okay. I'm Nzinga Metzger, professor of anthropology at FAMU.
Liz Gillum, PhD student in education policy and evaluation over at Florida State.
Bruce Strobel, sustainability coordinator, Florida A&M University.
TiTi, I'm a Sagittarius. I enjoy
Long walks on the beach.
Oh man, Adrian, concerned citizen.
Yes. Yes, goodness.
So all of these lovely people here I have done a podcast with at some point in time, which is really cool. So I'm just going to refresh y'all memories, listeners, so y'all can get on track, because some of y'all been getting off track, but y'all going to get back on track, right? So I did the Haitian Revolution 45, quote, shithole country show with Nzinga. And I had to buy new microphones because the one she talked on went up in flames.
Yes.
In that episode. They went up in flames. She was telling people about they self up in that. And Dr. Lyle Wood was also on there too, giving her knowledge and her wisdom. So y'all got to go back to that episode, because that episode was good. That was an impromptu episode.
Yeah, it was.
That was an impromptu. Funlayo just happened to be at my house. And I don't know if you called Nzinga or we called you to let you know that she was in town, but Nzinga came through that night and we started talking about it, and literally When they started talking about it, I mic'd the whole room up. I was like, we don't talk about this. So that is how that episode even came to be. Y'all got to go back and hear that one. I had Sister Liz on. We were talking about She's Gotta Have It. Mm-hmm. That was a good conversation, y'all. We were talking about She Gotta Have It. We were talking about Gabrielle Union's book, I think.
Yeah, we did.
And we talked about, I think I talked a little bit about Jennifer Lewis's book.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the homegirl episode, yo. You could just had a glass of wine and listen to that episode. We should have had a glass of wine next time.
Yes.
Then I got the homie Bruce Strobel, and he and I did a podcast on his show. Mm-hmm. What was your show?
My Black Reality.
We did
sports and race.
We did sports and race.
And we talked about. I still can't pronounce it.
The CTE?
Yeah, CTE.
Yes. The post-concussive encephalopathy that people are having after playing those contact sports. We were talking about whether we think the kids should play. We had a good conversation.
Very good.
See, y'all play too much. We out here doing good things in the world. But yes, I wanted to get these group of people together because we had to talk about what happened and what is still happening, ongoing, with this election, y'all. I'm starting to call this thing double S for the shit show because it's just one new thing after the next. People finding ballots in random places.
In closets.
Backs of trucks.
Man.
Finding ballot machines wrapped up in warehouses.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Not giving places electric cords for the ballots. It's just out of control.
True.
Out of control. So, talk to me about your thoughts on this. Whoever want to jump it off, and just give some opening remarks because I already know the conversation's going to jump off from there. Because there's so many ways we can go with this.
Man, we're in a time where it's hard to discern: is it disenfranchisement? Is it voter suppression? Is it a close election? It's just like the trust that people have in the voting system is at it's always been challenging and it's been low, but I don't know if it's lower. It's just when you listen to what people are saying, you have so many different groups of people that your vote doesn't count. You have to vote or you are disrespecting your ancestors. You know, we get these extreme arguments being made. But then I'm not sure everybody knows the mechanics of how the voting process actually works. I was talking to my class the other day and I said, well, you know, who should we hold accountable if there's a problem in the election process? President Obama, like they didn't know. It was like they didn't even know there was an office, the supervisor of elections office. They didn't even know that existed. So it's so many challenges. It's a very dynamic problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think definitely the conversations around voting in general they always come up every time there's an election. And I think one thing that gets lost in the conversation in those extreme arguments that Bruce is mentioning is the fact that the government is going to function whether we vote or not.
Right.
And the government is going to function for our betterment or for worse for us whether we vote or not. And the one thing I always tell like my students and other people who are interested in listening is things may not get better for us as Black people, but they damn sure could get worse. And, you know, the thing about it is, I think a lot of people think they should be voting in their own self-interest. If I was voting in my own self-interest, I would not vote the way that I vote. Mm-hmm. As a person who has to live on the planet, in the country, in the state, in the city, in the county, with other people, you know, your destiny and your life is tied to theirs or tied to other people. And so, you know, I try to vote with keeping in consideration the least of us. So it's not just about your own life and voting in your own best interest. It's about at least putting a stopgap in place so that we can continue to work on our own problems within our community. And hopefully at the very least they'll leave us alone. You know, can we just go back to a government where y'all ignore us?
Right.
But we're not going to be able to do that if we continue to let these right-wing, Christo-fascist, neo-Nazi, Ku Klux Klan sympathizing people get into office. And it's like, you know, we're having these very academic arguments while these very dangerous people are getting put into office. Is the government always pretty much going to be, you know, full of implicit bias? Yes. But at least sometimes we have some white people who be like, well, maybe I shouldn't say racist shit on national TV. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I shouldn't say that. And sometimes we have some white people who will be like, well, you know, we don't really care about the black people. I mean, we can deal with that. We've been dealing with our own problems for so long, you know. We can deal with that. But in terms of like having people who are actively like trying to oppress, control, suppress, imprison, you know, it's a problem. It's a problem. We're at a really, really crucial, dangerous time for people to be on some apathetic whatever, you know. So I'm just hoping that the show proves in the recount, please, 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 please. And we get somebody who's at least sympathetic, even if, because I've heard some comparisons. I've heard people compare him to Obama, which, you know, if you're a real progressive, it's not actually a good thing.
Right.
But
Right.
He said that, I was like, no.
Yeah.
No.
But I mean, at least he would be sympathetic at face value, and maybe we could have access to have some conversations, you know, that would serve our communities here in Tallahassee and in Florida in general.
I think a lot of times the people, because we obviously want the people who are sympathetic, and I think a lot of times the people who would vote for them take it for granted. They're like, well, you know, it's okay. We are, a lot of people are still hoping that good is still going to win. And we don't have time to wait for the eventuality of good to win. Like, we need to get out there and have a voice in this, because the people who want the other stuff are voting, and they're loud, and we hear them, and they're present. And I think that it's up to the decent people to come forward and counteract that. My fear is that one of the fears that I had in 2008 was that if things looked improper and President Obama hadn't won, that a lot of people would lose hope and just not bother anymore. And that's a concern that I have now, because with all the stuff that's coming out, these ballots that are being found, these machines it's just blatant. And one of my concerns is that a lot of people are watching this and their concerns and their fears are validated. Well, maybe my vote doesn't count, or if it's not going to matter, they're going to do what they want anyway. And I'm hoping that a lot of the other races nationally that have had really great and progressive outcomes will show that we just got to keep pushing.
Yeah.
I'm keeping an eye on a lot of my friends and a lot of younger folk who are, you know, out here saying that it didn't matter anyway. And I'm just hoping that they see that, you know, we keep pushing, we keep fighting.
Hearing what y'all saying, it makes me think, you know, when they say when America gets the cold, Black America gets the flu. And the way that relates to this situation is that Black people have felt disenfranchised for a very long time. So when you have these movements to say, all right, everybody, we're going to try this again, we're going to get out here and vote. And then you have situations where it's like, look, it didn't work. I just imagine that the effect that has on the people collectively, it takes away it chips at their belief in collective efficacy, that they can actually work together to do something. And it's disastrous. So I do think that one of the problems is, and it goes all the way back to when Puffy was doing the vote or die thing, and it's just like, get out and vote, and then it's like, and then what? Like, so that's what I hear a lot of people saying, like, what happens if the voting isn't enough? Like, we need more to the plan than just vote. And I think it's very irresponsible to tell people all you have to do is vote. And I think that's what makes it seem disingenuous, because a lot of times that's all people hear is like, if you just go vote, then, you know, we'll vote away these problems. They'll be like, you don't like the president doing this, or you don't like that the United States is doing this practice, vote, and it, you know, that'll take it away. And that's not true. So we have to look at voting at face value, what it actually is. It's just a mechanism to try to influence how the government is directed. It's not a revolution. It's not going to make this great significant change. People are still going to go by pretty much different parts of the same playbook. So,
Absolutely. And this type of environment is really designed to make you apathetic. It's designed that way on purpose. And I absolutely feel apathetic. I still do it though, you know, because I still have to live here. I still have to drink the water. I still have to breathe the air and be around people. And you know what I'm saying? I have to engage with people in the community. And so, you know, that's why I do. But, you know, it's things like, because now we have, 1.4 million felons who can now vote.
Yep.
And they're looking at this shit like, y'all want me to participate in this shit? Mm-hmm. What do we have for them to encourage? But we also can use to that point, okay, we voted you this opportunity. So you see what we can do. What you know, because you have some very specific experiences that could really help us on this side too. Find a way to give them folks some purpose, you know, give them so that, you know, we can all work together to advance an agenda that could benefit a lot of our community, because everybody in our community has felons in their family. I don't know a black family or any family really that doesn't have any felons. You know what I'm saying? And this ain't a bad or good conversation. This just is what it is. And they're coming in Florida. They have some rights restored. And, you know, we gotta persuade them to want to participate, because I can see them looking at this like, and they got ballots. They finding them somewhere, you know what I'm saying? You're saying every vote counts, you know? But we always have to be mindful. This environment is designed to make you apathetic. That's why you have to be aware about that, so that you can push through and do the things that you need to do regardless.
I think Liz made some good points, you know, in terms of taking things for granted. And I think a lot of people laid back. I think there was a more perceivable laying back when Obama was in office, but I think we've been laying back for about 60 years or more. And then to your point, Bruce, when people ask about, okay, what am I supposed to do after I vote? Well, let's just be really honest for a second here. Most of the people who ask that question ain't doing shit no way.
First of all,
let's just talk about that. So my thing is, if you're not doing anything, if you're not working in the community, if you're not organizing, if you're not knocking on doors, if you're not volunteering, if you're not, you know, doing something for the community, the least expensive, least in terms of time investment, least in terms of energy investment, least in terms of really thinking, because you can go to your party and get a ballot, is just vote. And then you can go back to doing the nothing you was doing before you was asking that question.
Exactly.
Because that's really where it is. There's really a very small portion of the population who is out there busting their asses for social change.
Yes.
And most of these people asking this question with this level of indignance are not the ones who are out there doing the work. So all we're saying is, if you ain't doing nothing, this is one more, 0.3 nanometer of nothing that you can go do to help the people who are out there who got themselves on the line.
Hello.
Right? Like, it really don't cost you nothing. It don't take it don't take your time. Ain't nobody asking you to come no place every weekend. Ain't nobody asking you to put no money in.
Hello.
This is a simple, easy thing.
Up.
If you don't know who to vote for, go to the party you think that your your values closely align with, and go get the ballot. And then bubble in the bubbles.
Come on. You can do it.
And then in terms of just thinking about, taking things for granted, we can see, I think a lot of people think that progress is this linear progression that happens forward all the time. And our current state of affairs is showing us that all the progress that we've made can be easily swept away with the stroke of a pen. So literally, none of this stuff is guaranteed that it's going to stay. None of this stuff is guaranteed that it's going to move forward. Look at all the affirmative action things that are happening. Look at who we've got on the Supreme Court now. All of these things can be erased. And we can end up in a situation that is quite dire. And then what we're going to be doing? Looking around at each other like how we got here. And there's going to be historians like me and Bruce and Clips and Goliath like, well, do you really want to know how you got here? Because we can show you. Like, apathy is not an excuse. Apathy is not an excuse. Like you were saying, Adrienne, there are all kinds of things we feel apathetic about, but we do them all the time.
What?
All the time, like shampooing rugs. You know what I'm saying? Going to class on Monday.
Right.
There are all kinds of things that we do that we don't necessarily want to do.
And guess what you do? You
You're
get your ass up and do them.
And you might not necessarily see the benefits of that thing immediately. You know what I'm saying? You yourself might not immediately benefit from them at all. But there's a proverb that says, when a man plants a mango seed, he is not planting it for himself. He's planting it for generations to come. So if you, and I don't have like an exceptional amount of faith in the system. I really don't. I don't vote because I believe in democracy. Because democracy doesn't exist here. We don't have a democracy. That's obvious from these 2 elections that we've had, where the majority has voted for the candidate who lost.
Right.
So I don't believe in the system. It doesn't work. But we don't have to keep throwing monkey wrenches, nuts, bolts, twigs,
Right.
patches,
Yep.
gum, whatever we can throw in that mug to keep it from literally devouring us as a people. That's really how we have to see it, as what do we have to do to keep the system from actively and continually and continuously doing us harm on a consistent basis. That's what we're looking for, because it really is never going to work in our favor as far as I'm concerned.
Never. It wasn't built for us.
It wasn't built for us, so it's not going to work in our favor. Like old folks always say, if you ain't going to do me no good, don't do me no bad.
There we go. You know, because we're all connected. Like, you literally have to get on public transportation, or you have to drive on the highways and the freeways like everybody else. You breathe in the same air.
Get
that
stuck
we
in
have.
traffic. Look what the governor did. The railway that was supposed to be between Tampa and Orlando, when Obama sent the money for it, he sent the money back. Now we all got to sit on I-4 for an hour and a half. You know what I'm saying? Simple things like that. You know, the way that you file for your unemployment before a certain governor was in place, you could just file for your unemployment and then, you know, find a job that was according to your education and your background. Now you got to apply for 5 jobs every time you go to get your unemployment. Well, if you got a PhD, how many PhD jobs can you apply for before you done went through the whole chronicle of higher ed? And what you gonna do? Apply for McDonald's jobs? So then you start working at McDonald's for 40 hours a week. Do you have time then to go and interview for the jobs that you know, are commensurate with your experience? No, you don't. It doesn't make any sense. And these are things, everybody knows somebody unemployed.
Hello.
Everybody knows somebody trying to get some unemployment or something. So, you know, this whole idea that, it doesn't affect me, whatever, it's just not true. We're not dealing in a, we're not
And that's
dealing.
how you know they don't know. They probably never even looked at a ballot to know all of the shit that comes on the ballot.
Exactly.
It's not just this
The people,
Democrat and this Republican.
Right.
There's so much stuff on the ballot.
Right.
So much stuff on the ballot that Brother Bruce had to form a coalition so
That's
we
right.
could, you know, go through it with some sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But that's the level of critical thinking and analysis that you have to do so that you can get some things in place, so that you can do the things that you need to do.
Right. I mean, and it really ain't even that deep of a critical thinking.
Not at all.
Here's my process. I don't know who to vote for. Let me call Bruce.
But see, my thinking is going further. Like we thought of these kind of ideas, me and Jay English and my friend Goliath, a while back. This is when Obama was in office, and we were questioning like, what are we going to do as a people once Obama, who wasn't, you know, as Obama said, he wasn't the president of Black America. He made that clear, right?
Right.
So it was kind of like, what do we do after him? How do we prepare to move on? And like we had a lot of internal debates, and one of the things that it centered around was this idea of strategically choosing our candidates.
Yes.
And that even meant, you know, this is blasphemy around certain Black circles, looking outside of the Democratic Party at certain times. Understanding that most of the time the Democratic Party offers us the candidate who is more favorable than the Republican Party does in many cases, but being willing to invite them both to say, what are you willing to do for the Black vote? And making that our position, as opposed to this unyielding alliance that the Black community seems to have with the Democratic Party, that no matter what y'all throw in front of us, every single time we vote Democrat, we don't ask no questions, we don't say anything, here's our votes. So we wanted to find a way to organize ourselves in a fashion where we could say, actually, Mr. Democratic candidate, this is what we want if you want Black votes. And I think that's the next step of what we do beyond don't just vote. We're going to have organized voting. Bring another level of organization to it. If you want black votes, then this is what we need in return. And then the question becomes, what are we willing to do if we don't get it? Are we willing to say, well, then we'll all just lose? Or, that's what people did with the whole Bernie or bust thing. And, I mean, I don't know that it worked, but, I mean, we are living with the consequences right now. So
it obviously did not work. It didn't work.
Yeah, because the Democratic Party was kind of recalcitrant afterwards.
And they did sabotage. Yes, that's all true.
And I guess it would have worked if the Democratic Party said, we can't ever allow this to happen again. We all got to come together. We got to listen to both sides. But they're still kind of like...
Yeah.
I seen something they talk about running Hillary again. So.
Please don't
do this.
Please don't.
No. Listen, and we really got to start grooming candidates.
Yes.
For all
it
of us.
doesn't seem like the Democratic Party is tuned in.
They're not very interested in that. No. They have who they want, and that's what it is. And get on board or don't. But they're not interested.
That's not how it's rocking.
No, exactly.
It's just not working. It's not going to work. It didn't work with Hillary, and it's not going to work.
Your ancestors died for Hillary Clinton.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Listen, they died for a whole lot of shit that we ain't capable for either. So let's not lose that in the discussion. I got you.
Yeah.
I understand.
And look, we could talk about what they didn't die for that we all doing. They ain't died for us to be, sitting up eating GMO food, drinking water with what is it called? Leftover pharmaceuticals in it. Breathing polluted air.
Right.
Buying cheap goods from China.
Pig feces.
Right.
Yes.
They
didn't want that.
They ain't die for that.
They didn't die for that. They didn't die for that. Y'all saw that with the pig farm up in South Carolina dumping all of that. Or was it South Carolina or North Carolina?
North Carolina after the storm.
What? All up in people's well water.
Yeah, no, man.
Capitalism is a whole mess, man. It is destroying everything.
But I think, too, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know who to vote for. But I'm like, okay, that's still not a reason.
Right.
Like, you can find out
who you want to vote for.
You can find out who to vote for.
I mean, we have the internet.
We have the
internet.
Takes a second. And if you're not an internet person,
out.
That's right. I was going to say, if you want to, you can find out who's got the latest release out. You can find out who got the newest Nikes out. You can find out what the newest whatever. Like, if you want to vote, you can easily find out who to vote for. There's got to be somebody in your community who's knowledgeable, who you can simply ask if you're not a internet person or whatever. But you can. Right. This is something that you can find out. It's not, and I think that it's partially like what you were talking about, Adrian. This environment that just breeds apathy, and people just want things to just be presented to them in toto without really them having to expend any energy in the process of whatever or for themselves. But it's like, yeah, there were several candidates on the ballot. I didn't know who they were. If I didn't have the voting group to tell me, okay, this person leans this way, this person leans this way, this many people voted, this was uncontested, I wouldn't have known who to vote for. But I made it a point to find some place to help me with my ballot. And you also have to be humble.
Yes.
You know, you have to be humble enough to be like, I don't know about this. Somebody help me.
Ask questions. Or even, reading some of the amendments, sometimes the wording can be a little bit challenging.
The way they bundle them and they put a whole bunch of stuff together in there that has nothing to do with anything.
Because it's all legalese.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why we have people who have, 4-year degrees to be able to interpret legalese, because your average person can't read it. I can't read it. I don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
I need somebody to explain it to me in plain English.
And I for sure ask people. I'm unashamed. I will call somebody who has fluency in legalese, because I don't.
Right.
Paperwork and all that stuff makes my brain just shut down.
Right.
That ain't me. And the other stuff, I'm on it with that, and people can come to me for what they need as far as that goes. That's why you got to build a community of people who have many different experiences, who have many different skills, who have many different interests and fields of expertise, so that you can call somebody when, you're trying to figure out something simple like, was grapes on sale this week? How should we vote as a community?
Yeah.
Interesting thing I just thought of, right? Our group in a way, we decided at least one race here in Tallahassee, right? We talked to the candidates for our city commission C3.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually going to a recount. Last time I checked,
Yeah,
right?
it just happened. Mm-hmm.
It just happened.
Yeah, they just announced that it was going to a recount.
Okay, it's going to recount. I mean, that's how close these elections are. So if you think we had 26 people who all had a spirit influence, and they shared our list, and they shared it with people, and people were sharing it, people were voting that way.
That's
I
real.
mean, ultimately, we've affected that election just in that small sentence. So
That's
imagine
real.
if we had 250 or 2,500 people. You know, it just builds your influence over the election when people could organize and say, you know what, we asked the candidates, what is your plans for Tallahassee's black community? They both responded. I posted that in the group. We reviewed it. Everybody said, well, I like this answer better. That's just a step in the right direction, I think, that we should be looking at. And interestingly, I begin a lot of people in the my message like, hey, how did y'all do this? We want to do it here in New Jersey. We want to do it here in Fort Lauderdale.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And give us the full title of it and explain a little bit. You know, it's kind of like we start at the end and work backwards.
Okay.
And start at the beginning and just kind of talk about what you're talking about so people have a little context.
We're calling it the Annual Local Election Review Team. That's alert. I like the acronym.
I didn't even know there was an acronym.
It was kind of fun. I saw it. I was like, oh shit, okay.
So you remember we just it kind of just developed because we needed it. We were all like, I don't know this part of the ballot. You don't know this part, so let's all get together. I think we met at my house.
Yes, we did.
And it was about maybe 15 of us, and we went through the ballot. We argued back and forth, and then I said, well, we need to kind of formalize this a little bit more. So. We need to get more people involved. So this year we put it in Facebook because it was hard for us to get our face-to-face meetings together.
Yeah.
But again, the idea was to build consensus around certain
utilize
candidates.
Technology, y'all.
Yeah. And
utilize technology.
Build that consensus. Say this is how we're going to vote here, and going forward, you know, I think we'll make it bigger. My vision for it is for us to be able to hold forums and be like, these are the candidates who we believe support are sensitive to the needs of Tallahassee's black community.
I think it would be awesome for us to be able to like go into community centers, churches, or whatever, and just share the information in plain English for the average people, and then leave like a sample ballot, or whatever, so that people can just go and vote and know, okay, there's nothing that, because you know how they word these things a lot of times, they word them intentionally to be confusing so that you're voting yes when you really should be voting no. You know, so I think it would be great for us to eventually evolve to that point.
All right, so this governor race in Florida and Georgia.
I'm so stressed out.
Just want to have nice things.
We just want to have nice things.
That's all.
So stressed.
That's all.
We got a recount and we got a runoff.
Yep.
Sheesh.
I'm so stressed. Like every time I hear it come on the radio, I turn it off because I can't.
I saw on CNN they said Andrew Gillum unconceded.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a word
I think
until
I didn't
Wednesday.
I didn't either.
He withdrew his concession.
Yeah.
I saw people criticizing him because he conceded, and I thought, you know, that is, as a politician, that's the standard protocol. And at the same time, Stacey Abrams, she didn't concede, and I was okay with that. Also, it's a choice that you make based off the numbers and what you see.
Yes.
And he said based off what he was looking at the time, he didn't see any way that he would go for it and win. He didn't know they were going to be, like I said, finding ballots in the closet. Like that. So,
he didn't know that.
Yeah.
He didn't know that.
And he's also a person. Like, I think people forget that he's got a family. He's got, at some point, he probably was just done. Like, you know what? I came to do. And on the flip side of that, I was like, you know, if you came out here and you actually had a platform and you are a decent person who actually has Florida's interest in mind, and you still came within 1% of the vote for a racist without a platform, well, then forget y'all. Really? That's an insult to him. I mean, okay, then y'all can have it then. I'm
you know,
good.
And something that I stated is that, you know, people who decide they're going to run for office are really putting their necks on the line in this current environment.
Yes.
Like, I'm pretty sure whoever his security detail is or whoever, they're fielding all kinds of death threats,
that too.
all kinds of
Yeah.
things, you know. And for us to be out here talking about, well, I don't really feel like voting because I don't know, you know, it's just like it's not good enough,
Right?
Just
you know,
the character assassination. I mean,
Certainly.
the newspapers in Florida, and I have friends at the newspaper. Y'all gonna have to be mad about this. Y'all perfectly timed a coordinated attack on Andrew Gillum to be right alongside, coincide with the election. They were bringing up stuff from 2 and 3 years ago about alleged FBI investigations. That if it happened, why hasn't he been arrested? Why wasn't there an indictment? A 3-year-old investigation.
And, and why are we are like the uber moral populace when we've got the chief criminal in charge
grabbing folks?
Like, come on now, y'all, some Hamilton tickets. That's what I'm supposed to be mad about.
Right.
Some Hamilton
tickets.
When you got, you know, you got your daughter is about to get how many patents in China?
Yeah.
Hello.
You wheeling and dealing using the presidential office as a sales office,
right?
But I'm supposed to be, you know, feeling some kind of way about
2 tickets.
Just 2. It's 2 tickets.
Not even a whole auditorium. Just
2 tickets. I can't deal.
So, and I'm not saying that, you know, that kind of stuff, it should be reported on, but I thought it was just irresponsible to allow it to start coming out right then. It just seemed too well coordinated.
Yeah.
But I think it was effective because I told people this. I was getting some food one night and I was talking to one of the waitresses and I asked her, I said, "Did you vote?" She was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Yeah, I did my research. I made sure not to vote for that criminal Andrew Gillum."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, so you're a Republican?" She's like, "No, I'm a Democrat." And
Sorry.
She just she's like, "I'm a Democrat and I support progressive candidates."
What?
But it was like, "Why do you think he's a criminal?" She's like, I saw it on something on Google. I searched and that's what came up. So it was like, oh no, like I wonder how many people.
Yeah.
She was a first time voter. She didn't really have a frame of reference. I wonder how many people can they just chip off the block just like that.
Close enough for it to be within X. What is it? 0.2.
Something.
Can we talk about that 18% number of black women?
What
is that real? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not buying that.
No,
it's real. It's real.
It's exit polls, so it doesn't. But okay, let me try to explain it the best
Please
I can.
do.
Yeah, break it down.
Okay, when you do an exit poll, you get a sample, right? You get a sample size that is representative of the general population, right? So you can get an idea of how people are voting in our different demographics. So I think they did maybe a couple hundred people, and in that group that they sampled, 8% of them represented
18.
Okay, no, 8% of the participants were black women.
Okay,
and of that 8%, 18% claimed to have voted for DeSantis.
Wow.
So that's just a sample. That doesn't mean that if we look at all, I think for black women it might have been around 464,000 voters total, right? Okay. I don't think that all 18% of them voted for DeSantis, but the exit poll does point us in a direction that is higher than we would have expected. So we have to look at...
It's higher than 0. So
it's
much higher than we would have expected.
Some people might have been influenced by propaganda. We do have people who are Republicans. I've also heard reports that in some of our Caribbean communities and in Florida that they are starting to lean conservative. And then also the Trump factor. We have to look at that. Andrew Gillum was basically running against Trump in a Trump stool pigeon. So, I mean, the president has the bully pulpit. He has the megaphone. He's using the government office to influence local and state elections, right? So he was saying routinely, like, Andrew Gillum's a criminal. And Gillum should probably sue him for that, by the way. I don't know if you can. But he's like, Andrew Gillum's a criminal. He's the worst mayor. His city is the worst city in the state of Florida. Highest crime rate ever. So if, you know, some people pay attention to celebrity. So for it to be 18%, imagine that's somewhere between 10 and 18%. I could see it as possible that based off people just watching TV, seeing commercials, and then everyone's saying, you just get to the polls and vote without any voter education. It could happen.
Yeah. That's so unfortunate.
And then we saw the same thing in Georgia with Abrams. We saw, I think it was 16% of the black men voted for Kemp. So it's a challenge, right? I don't know. It's so many different dynamics But I feel like a lot of people are like, it's not possible. Is that how you felt, Liz? Or?
I was very confused by
too.
it. I'm not going to say it's not possible. I just, I always want people to do better. But I just kind of feel like even if you didn't know a whole lot else about their platforms, let's start with the racist stuff that was connected to DeSantis. Can we just start there? And I feel like that should have been a deal breaker for a lot more people than it was.
See, and this is, I'm sorry,
no, it's all right.
This is why we got to do this class on racism. Because people are looking for, when you say racism, if people don't see Ku Klux Klan sheets and a black body hanging from a tree, they're like, there's no racism happening here.
Right, and that ties into the comment that I was going to make with the Caribbean community. With Caribbean and African communities, oftentimes they are completely unaware, oblivious to, implicit bias.
Yeah, a lot of the dog whistles.
Right, they don't get it, and so they're oftentimes, insistent that black people from the United States are just, I don't know, histrionic, neurotic, crazy, paranoid, lazy, just don't want to work or whatever. And I think a lot of times that, fuels this, well, I'm going to be completely objective, and I'm going to vote for the best candidate. And it's like, well, if you've lived here in the United States and you have kind of like stewed in this juice for generations, we have a culture that has basically taught us how to identify the dog whistles. There is historic precedent. There is, a long-standing tradition of certain ways that you speak about people that as African Americans, we are very attuned to. And we're attuned to it because not being attuned to it could be a risk to your life.
Very dangerous.
Exactly.
I question that. I don't know how attuned to it we are anymore.
I agree. I have to concede
generations,
that. I agree. I agree.
People may not have that same sensitivity, which is dangerous.
It is dangerous, and I agree. I'm thinking about people my age.
Exactly.
We're definitely more attuned to it, and this is oftentimes why we tend to be more outraged at the subtle stuff, because these white people know what they're saying and what they're doing. But the younger people, we dropped the ball. People my age dropped the ball and did not teach. This is how you identify what that is, which is why people who are half of our age, they don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important that people in the 30s to 40s range, we need to start spending a lot more time with these young people. We need to spend a lot more time with them because we need to groom them. We need to prepare them because a lot of us aren't interested in becoming involved in local politics like that. You know what I'm saying? And some of these kids, with the type of intelligence, the type of fire that they bring in, the type of conviction that they have, and their skills and their talents, these are exactly the people who could kind of help, who we could kind of, give them a little bit of wisdom, polish them a little bit, get them prepared, and give them the support to tear this shit up.
Right.
We have to groom them so that we all can work together, because there's things that we can add to them. There's things that they can come to us, but when they come to us, we keep telling them that they're entitled. We keep telling them that they're, lazy. You keep telling them that they're not resourceful, that they're snowflakes and complain. You hear all kind of stuff about that age range. Those young, what is it, Generation Z? I can't keep track of all this shit.
Yeah.
Young millennials, the ones that was born in like the 90s and the 2000s, which is crazy to me, but it's
nuts.
Because they're adults.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we need to really, really, really start, because the ones, if we give them the space and give them the spark, they work so hard. They're so inspired. They're hustlers. They're so resourceful. You know what I'm saying? They can do that's part of the reason why we be mad at the apathy, because it's like, we know what the fuck you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
We know what you can do.
Right.
And so we need to work together so that we can all apply our gifts to kind of, get our agenda together and push things forward. Because we can't keep doing the same thing that we've been doing.
I was asking my mom, I was talking to, I don't remember what, something. Oh, it was after the election. It was after the presidential election. I was like, why? What is wrong with us? Like, why can't we get it together? I'm sorry. Why can't we get it together? And I was like, what is happening with us? And my mom was like, she was like, people her age, my age, who had children stop having conversations with their kids about racism because they felt like after affirmative action and after integration, everything was copacetic. And she was like, she was just like, and I was like, well, you know, how is it different in your generation? And she was like, because we used to talk about this type of stuff around the dinner table.
Yep.
She was like, you know, my father would come home and he would talk to us about what he was dealing with at work, or my mom, you know, and they would explain to us, you know, this is how you navigate this world, and one, keep your head on your shoulders, as in literally,
yes.
literally, and then two, how you keep your wits about you so that you can navigate and have somewhat of a decent quality of life for yourself. And she was just like, we just stopped having those conversations. So when we do encounter those young people who are entitled snowflakes, you know, whatever the rest of that list,
because they out there. Don't let my lovely sentiments fool y'all.
It's because oftentimes they were raised by people who wanted to shelter them from everything that they ever had to deal with, wanted to give them all the things that they never had. And it's like, that's not a substitute for parenting. I had a student in one of my classes, child. She was trying to argue me that poverty was a choice. I was like, look, girl, if you don't go sit down somewhere, ain't nobody choosing poverty. You know what I'm saying? Like, she literally was arguing with me about this. I was like, no, nobody chooses poverty. So she goes home and has a conversation with her mother. Listen to this. Finds out her mama grew up in Central Florida with an outhouse and no electricity. And she had to shut her damn mouth. But I fault the mother because the mother never told her where she came from. Her mother never explained to her what her life was like. Her mother never told her anything about her past. And when she asked her why, she said, well, because I wanted to give you a totally different life, blah, blah, blah. And then you wonder why these kids are entitled. Because you are raising them to be entitled. When they think that they should just have things, it's because you have just provided things.
Speaking of entitlements, let's go back to this that number where we got the 18% from, because we got to look at some other people in there, because we look at that 18% as that was high, but what's going on? Why are black people the only ones who seem to overwhelmingly be committed to progressive values in the country? It seems like every other demographic on there was 60 for white people. I think they were it's just racism. It's like it is racism, because it's like, I mean, do we want the water to be poisoned, or it's like y'all rather have a white candidate than clean water? I don't get it. Like,
well, here's the thing. This is the thing, and this is where we mess up. It's like what they say: if you don't understand racism and white supremacy, you don't understand anything else, right? They never said, like we always say that they're voting against, you know, they're good or something like that. They never told us that was their interest. They have told us time and time again what their interests were. They told us that Border Patrol is their interest.
Making sure your black ass don't have
right. They don't care. They don't care if, you know, they can't get insurance for diabetes. Not that much. They care about it, but not as much as they care about gun control. So we can't assume that what we think is our values or our interests and is what everybody else's is, when other communities will tell you exactly what theirs are, and you know that's what they're gonna fight for. They don't care about everybody getting medical services. Not enough. Not enough.
But see, this starts to bleed over even into the so-called liberal white people. They're going into those polls and they're not voting how they're telling us in public. Because the numbers aren't adding up.
That's true.
If the state is 50-50, it's like, wait a minute, that means that
some of y'all,
somebody lying,
right?
Somebody lying.
Yeah, I mean, it goes. I mean, I think the Bernie Sanders quote of the week is a perfect encapsulation of what you're talking about, where he says, you know, there were some white people who weren't necessarily racist, who voted, who were uncomfortable voting, just a little uncomfortable here.
You know,
voting.
This should never happen to me
candidate.
As a historian, but I was disappointed in Bernie for that. I thought that he at least knew enough not to be that ignorant. Like, there's levels of ignorance I expect from people, but that was an egregious statement on his part.
But the thing is, Bruce, he a white man.
I know.
White folk, all the time.
They gonna white folk.
What I'm saying is, maybe after the fact he realized what he said. But if you are white and you are raised in this country, your default is bias against people of color. So his natural thing was to go to a place where he's saying, well, they're not necessarily racist. They're just uncomfortable. You know, and that's the type of racism that most people can't see. They can't see that type of racism. So I'm sure that statement went over a lot of people's heads. And I'm sure that there are a lot of white people who went into the ballot who are not into the voting booth, who are not willing to challenge themselves on that, because there's no aspect of their life that's going to be made more difficult for voting for the candidate that doesn't support more progressive values. So maybe they did have that kind of like, oh, I don't know, I just can't vote for Andrew Gillum, I don't know why, I'm just gonna vote for it. You know what I'm saying? They're not there's no desire to take the self to task and really have a conversation with themselves about that.
And the work, what was I listening to? I'm listening to Kevin Powell's new book. And it's actually extremely good. But he was talking about like the exhaustion for Black people who have to explain this over and over again, until finally it was a point where he was just like, listen, don't talk to us anymore. Talk to your cousins. Talk to your folks.
Right.
It's exhausting having to explain how this works and history and the system.
But y'all won't read no books.
That's it. That's all we want.
You know what I'm saying?
We can point you to resources.
Bring some information to me that I don't know.
Right.
Bring me some shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's exhausting to have to explain it over and over.
And it's also exhausting for somebody to be like, well, are you sure that that's racism? Do you think maybe that it could be? Well, what about, you know what I'm saying? Like somebody who's constantly questioning your ability to discern what you've just experienced.
Right. Which ultimately comes down to a collective disbelief or devaluing of Black people's experiences.
Exactly.
We could all say, you know what? If you ask 10 Black people, 8 of them had negative experiences with the police, right? And then somebody will say, well, maybe they're making it up. But it can't all be true. Yeah. And it's just like, then what do we do this research for? Why do we do surveys? Like, what's the point? If everyone's just lying all the time. So it's just... It's frustrating, and I understand what he was saying. It just gets exhausting having to explain to people that people who are wearing Nazi uniforms are racist. I don't care if you know them and they were nice to someone before. If they're in the Ku Klux Klan, yes, they are racist.
It's like, why are we even arguing semantics about this?
And then can we just have the conversation about, like, like you were saying, if people don't see a hood and people don't think it's racism, it's like, no, there's so much more to it than that. The vast majority of racism is so much more subtle, so much more finely chopped than somebody burning a cross on your lawn. And if you don't have the ability to see it and discern it, you're going to be at its mercy at all.
And they think it's an emotion.
It is not an emotion.
It's not even an orientation. It's an extremely diabolical and elegant system.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Finely tuned.
Yes.
Yeah. It's immaculate damn near.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the level of energy that we're dealing with. It's not like, ooh, I don't like him because he makes me feel a little. No, it's not that at all.
Right.
It's the way it's designed, structured.
It's structural, right?
Woven into the fabric, as they say.
Basically.
And I'm always trying to explain that to people, and I'm drawing back because I was like, I'm just gonna write a book about it, and then you have to pay to learn about it because I can't keep going out trying to teach everybody like what is racism, what is implicit bias, what is explicit bias, what's old-fashioned racism, what's modern racism. So it gets very dynamic, but as you were just saying, Adrian, it's kind of like it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's part of a larger it's a part of a larger context that dates all the way back to the transatlantic slave trade and the events that followed that. So
it also and the thing that most people don't realize and understand is that whiteness was a concept that was created. Whiteness is not something that has always existed. It is a socio political orientation that depends on racism and that racism depends on.
Right.
Exactly.
And so white people get in their feelings when you implicate whiteness, but they don't know because they have attached themselves to this socio-political orientation that cannot function without racism, and without which racism cannot function.
But they'll be quick to turn on you and say, but race is a social construct. They'll be quick to put it back on you.
Girl, that post. Nzinga gave the post of all posts. There wasn't a wig. I don't even wear a wig, and that shit was on the ground when I finished reading that.
I'm so tired of people talking about race as a social construct.
Hold on, wait, I gotta find this. I'm finna read this in a minute.
So is language.
Yes, that doesn't make it not real.
All of it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, can we stop doing it? Can we please?
Nzinga read it all for filth.
What's the name said? Was it Cobia? She was like, did she just snatch all our wigs?
She snatched every wig in the house. I'm gonna read this to y'all. This is my friend Dr. Nzinga Metzger on Facebook, October 28th.
I was in my feelings.
She had an anthropology moment. She said, can we please stop being impressed with ourselves for stating that race is just a social construct in order to, 1, gaslight those of us concerned with racism, 2, sound smart, 3, trivialize racism, 4, convince us that you're beyond race, 5, convince us that it's not real. Newsflash, political parties are social constructs, but y'all out here in the blue and red wars. Educational systems are social constructs, but people kill themselves getting degrees. Manners are social constructs, and some of y'all spend oodles of cash to eat at white top restaurants to kiki and pinky finger your wine glasses and teacups for social clout. Laws are social constructs, but they're the only thing keeping some of y'all from acting a fool every day. Religion is a social construct, but some of y'all literally condemn people to a make-believe hot place just because they don't believe in your particular invisible friend. Beauty is a social construct, but some of y'all out here mortgage, insurance, family, and nap before the party years old and are socially awkward and crying to your therapist because someone called you ugly in the 9th grade. I gotta read that sentence again.
We live by social constructs.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. They called you ugly in the 9th
Somebody
grade.
they crying. They still crying because somebody called you ugly.
Wait, we got more.
Oh,
marriage is a social construct, but most of you would seizure if your spouse cheated on you, talking about some, it's okay, babe. Our marriage is a social construct. Finish reading the chapter on social constructs before you try to best us with half knowledge in your next debate. As you were. Girl, let me pick my edges up.
I'm so tired of people talking about, well, race is a social construct, because that's supposed to let you. I guess the appropriate response is right. I had no idea.
Never mind then.
Well, never mind. All this stuff is just, forget about it.
Everything I said, throw it in the trash.
Right.
Get away from me.
But you can't put it on them. You can't tell them that whiteness is a constructed
It's
identity.
a completely constructed.
But you can't tell them that.
It's completely. And then I had this realization a couple months ago where I was trying to figure out why white people be so mad about African American. Remember that post that I made? Yeah. And I was like, why? I was like really digging in my mind, like, why are they so upset about it? And I realized, long story short, was that they traded ethnicity for race. White people who came to this country and who continue to come to this country trade their ethnicity for race. So they give up their old country values, they give up their unpronounceable names, they give up their cultural practices, they give up their connection to old Europe in order to be white in America, because that is what gives them the privilege. And they are upset with black people because we are still reaching for our ethnic identity.
Hold on, the microphone done went up in flames. Again. She going on, people. And listen, and I got to keep coming back to this book because I'm actively listening to it right now, and it's fresh in my mind. The title of the book, by the way, by Kevin Powell, is My Mother, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and the Last Stand of the Angry White Man. Very interesting book, and it's almost like an interesting love letter to black men from a black man. Very interesting. He goes down a list of all kinds of black men and just kind of give from his, point of view. Everybody, Cam Newton, Barack Obama, Tupac Shakur. So he was trying to give some historical context to why black men present the way they do, or why, when they're coming up and you're mad at them for, not answering questions nicely at a press conference after they lose a game. You know what I'm saying? He was just giving some very interesting historical context, and very interesting. So, and that's what happens is when you don't have any type of education on history, people don't see your humanity. This is why we were quote unquote 3/5 of human.
Right.
And people throw that around, don't know what they talking about half the time.
Lord today.
Come on, man.
Lord today.
But that's the thing, like when we look at the contemporary socio-political landscape, if you don't have any type of point of reference in history, then you're going to look at the socio-political landscape at a very superficial level. Like, you're not going to be able to look at it and be like, oh, well, this is happening because XYZ, ABC happened in the past, and that's what created this environment. So you're just looking at the structures that exist now without really, knowing how we arrived at this point. And I think that type of amnesia is what plagues Americans in general. We have very short-term memories and very little value. I mean, look at how intellectualism has taken a bludgeoning in the public arena.
It's elitism now.
Right. It's now elitist to be intellectual or to be academic or to actually study something, and obviously those things are not inextricably intertwined, right? Like, you can be educated and not have gone to school. Those two don't necessarily mean the same thing. But we're, like you said, now we're at a place where, being educated about something is being sedity, it's being elitist, it's being, all of these things, when, the opposite is just ignorant. I think that, and I think that I haven't listened to the book, but I'm just thinking about black people in general. If you knew something about black people, you know why we mad all the damn time.
Listen.
You know what I'm saying? How many of us have a story about land that was either taken by white people? How many of us have a lynching story in our family? How many of us have a story of police brutality in our family? The vast majority of us.
Right. Yes.
The vast majority of us. So when you roll up on us talking about, are you sure that was racism? I'm not really. I think maybe they were just... No, damn it.
And the ones who actually listen and give a damn get mad too.
Right.
Like, it makes sense. Like, when you hear about it, you're like, this is... Okay, this is
I
bullshit.
know what that is.
Right.
Yeah.
And they get mad too.
A great example of what you're describing is the other day I was talking with some people, and we were talking about the situation in Georgia where they were saying how the voting machines were failing at specific counties that were primarily black.
Right.
And then I said, this is racism. There's no other way to explain it. And then, of course, someone said, well, are you sure it's racism?
Of course.
These things happen, and, they could be resolved. It happens at the local level. And I was like, let me explain, sir. When I say racism, I'm talking about the disparate impacts that are incurred by people of color, normally black people or some other people who do not have the privileges that white people have, and therefore they're being disadvantaged when we see these turnouts. And it didn't happen this one time. This is not the first time this has ever happened.
Right.
We could trace this all the way back to when they first started allowing black people to vote.
Taxes.
And we saw these same types of practices where black people were being shortchanged during elections. So that white political interest could prevail. And we're seeing it again right now in 2018. So you tell me what it is. We can call it whatever word you want.
Exactly. And then when we do decide, you know what, this ain't really working for us, let's go over here and do our own thing. They come and
bother us.
Yes.
They come and bother us wherever we go. Wherever we go.
Yep.
Every single time. And so the level of frustration from generations, and you come in and you're thinking that we're just being overly sensitive or being, you know what I'm saying, extra about it. And of
living in
course
the past.
But are we
living in the present?
Listen,
Right.
Listen, all day, every day. White folks, get out. If you're out there listening, just like when I always implore men to talk to the women in their family, you'd be surprised what you find out that has happened to them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of y'all mothers and grandmothers have been raped, have been molested, had those things. But of course, they're not really going to share it like that. But if you understood the level, it's the same thing.
Yes.
With black folks, ask those type of questions like what has happened in their family. You're gonna hear some shit.
Come on now.
Why do huge droves of black people moving up north? Why? Because
terrorism.
They had to kill somebody.
Because terrorism.
Right,
basically. That's exactly it.
And that's all it is. Point blank, period. Terrorism. People fleeing.
And the thing about that too that sticks in my mind is that most of the families that I know, if each person it represents a family, most black people have a lynching story in their family. Mm-hmm. So where they get this 2,000, 3,000 number from?
That's recorded and documented.
You know what I'm saying? Like if it's 12 million of us and all of our families have at least one lynching story, that statistic is way off.
Well, again, in fairness, that is Tuskegee's number. That's based off of what Ida B. Wells and Booker T were able to come up with their limited resources.
But here's the thing. It kind of going back to this book. The one who got killed for the land. They said that he choked on food.
Exactly.
So he would not be counted as a quote lynch.
Right. So a grown man choke on food to death. Yeah. You've been eating all your life.
I mean, this man bashed himself in the back of the head and tried himself to the train tracks.
Right.
Like that. So you have to be able to go there, do a full investigation, and find out what happened.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Because I know one assignment that I remember doing that was assigned to me when I was in grad school is we had to go back and look at lynchings and then look at what it said in the mainstream newspaper versus what the local black newspapers were saying, and it would be like two completely different stories.
This is why our independent media is so important.
Very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very
this is why our independent media is so important. There's so many black folks out there that doing some independent media, and I don't always agree with them. But I support them.
Right.
Like, Brother Diallo Kenyatta. I don't always agree with that brother, but I support him. I bet you I send him some Patreon. Mm-hmm. Yvette Carnell. She say some wild shit sometimes. Mm-hmm. I don't always agree with her or understand her, but I know she's coming from the same place that I am. Mm-hmm. And I put something on hers too. Mm-hmm. I make sure I support them because we need the alternative media. We ain't all got to agree on everything and get along, but we do have, things that we can meet together on, because like we said earlier, we still gotta live here, we still gotta breathe the air, we still gotta drink the water, we still gotta do all of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? We gotta connect, we gotta stop. Unless somebody's doing egregious shit to your spirit or psyche, you need to find some common ground with them.
Yeah,
you have to. We don't have a choice.
I mean, we used to.
All hands on deck.
I know everybody who was carpooling together during the bus boycott wasn't best friends.
Listen, you may have to carpool with somebody that slept with your husband.
Come on now,
get your ass in
this car.
It's not about you. Get in.
When this thing over, come on,
your ass.
Come on outside. Wait till this bus boycott.
And it happened too.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not making this up.
That would be a funny movie.
Listen, that really would. Oh man, I need to trademark that shit like yesterday.
Yes, immediately.
That would have been great. That would have been
edit
great.
that real quick.
Hey, who we gonna play in the movie?
Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart.
Shit.
Oh my god, that would be so hilarious.
The usual black people.
Y'all ain't shit. Oh man. Any last remarks, closing remarks? Anybody got anything else?
Get out and vote like your life depends on it. No, I'm just playing.
Right.
Hey.
Educate yourself.
Damn, did he?
Right.
Educate yourself. You gotta find a group, find a community, just get on the internet. Just do something, please. Just educate yourself about what's going on.
And let us know what you're doing.
Right. Yes,
you know what I'm saying? Because I support stuff. Like, I do a lot more than vote. I support people who have endeavors and other things here and across the water who are doing stuff. Sister Nzinga started a whole school program in Nigeria for young traditional children, man. Awesome. So like you don't have to lock yourself into the vote if voting ain't your thing. Go vote and do some other stuff. Or do nothing like Nzinga said, because we know how some of y'all gonna do anyway.
Just give me a vote.
Just vote,
please. Shoot, all hands on deck, baby, because we all we got, baby.
Yeah. Just be a thinking person. Like, be engaged in your world. Know what's going on so that you can make informed choices, not just about voting, but just about life in general. You know, there are a lot of people who end up in situations, whether they're in personal situations, relationship situations, political situations, situations with the law. They're making decisions and they're uninformed.
Yeah.
And it's like, just become an engaged, thinking person in your life. Don't just stop when the answer isn't the first thing that you come to, when the solution isn't just right there in front of you. Push yourself beyond that door or that wall where, you know, okay, well, I don't have an answer. Keep looking until you find an answer that generates the outcome that you want in your life. And that's something that can be translated, you know, all the way across the board, not just in terms of politics. Don't be a passive participant in your life.
At all costs. You know what I'm saying? Everything in your life. Sister Nzinga said it. Everything in your life. Be thinking about it. You know what I'm saying? Be an active participant in your life, in your community, in your family. You can't just go to work and then come home and close yourself up and then go get drunk at the club on the weekend and then repeat, rinse and repeat. You can't do that. I mean, you can, but shit, who want to live like that?
And it's a lot of people who've done that for 5, 10, in a weed cloud, 5, 10, 15 years. And then they woke up out of it and they're like, what did I do?
Right.
Where did that 15 years of my life go?
Exactly. Because when you do that, shout out to my brother Diallo Sunbury, when you engage your core, when you engage your community, that's when really stuff starts to pop off. That's when you're able to get the connection that you need to meet your goals and move through life and do the things that you love to do in your life. You know what I'm saying? You sit up and you just be at the house and be on the interwebs and not going anywhere, engaging with the community, getting to know people. And, you know, I know the value of really connecting with people. You know, working in a hospital, I run across people. Like, over the course of my career, I probably ran into thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. You know what it does to you? People who, you know, you had to hold their hand because they lost their child in a car accident the day before. People who was running and doing well, and all of a sudden they have a spinal cord injury and they can't walk. You know, people who came back from the dead.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Who had to be resuscitated. You know what I'm saying? Babies who made it, being only had less than a pound. And, you know, amazing type of things in your life and the people that you run across. But you can't have those type of experiences when your ass hold up in the house.
Right.
And you're not engaging with your community, and you're not getting together, and you're not having potlucks, and you're not asking how people's children are, and asking if people need anything, and seeing, you know, if people are really doing okay around you. You know,
because that's really where our wealth lies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you look at that article, I think it was in Forbes a couple of months ago, that says it would take the average black family 20 generations to catch up with the average white family here in the United States in terms of wealth. Was that what it said? 20 generations. So it's like, you know, when we don't have the financial resources to create, you know, this vision of life that we're presented here in the United States, I won't even say the next best thing. Our best resources is our culture. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of us don't really even think about what our culture is outside of memes, new dances, and new pop music. But, you know, there are values that are embedded in our culture in terms of communality, in terms of cooperation, in terms of concern, you know, in terms of working together in spite of differences, supporting each other. Those are all parts of our culture. If we leverage those things together, you know, we can create a standard of living and a way of life that is better than what we have today, which is just basically a bad facsimile of some shit we all saw on TV.
Listen, our culture, everything is there. Everything is there. We create out of nothing. You know, who was I talking to that was telling me that they were talking about how like hip hop was like 97%.
That was
you, right?
That was according to a Facebook post.
According to a Facebook post. Okay, we're not gonna take it as face value, but I'm gonna just share the sentiment, right? We literally created that shit with some paint cans, some cardboard, a couple of sound systems.
Not even systems. We had boom.
We had to pull stuff to get out. I read it was Grandmaster Flash, a memoir of a hip hop pioneer, and he was talking about he didn't even have enough money. He used to have to go to junkyards and pull the electric stuff out, and he electrically engineered the system
Right.
to be able to do that, because he didn't even have enough money to go and get a boombox. He had to go to abandoned cars. And
But look at even just like something as simple as Chuck Taylors, right? I mean, these were like the boom boom shoes back in the day. These were like, these were the poor people's shoes. And now, because that's what we could afford, this is like the whole thing is like taking on so it's like, what are the aspects of our culture that, can support us and help us that we don't think about, that are not these visible things that we can leverage for life?
I think it reminds me of something Marcus Garvey talked about, and I'll paraphrase, where he said that the greatest challenge for Black Americans was the lack of organization. Because I think we do so many things, and it's like we have limited resources and people are just surviving on their own. But when we see us at our greatest, it normally comes, a lot of times we've revered the individuals without looking at the organization that was behind them, and that is the real legacy there. Yeah. We could trace that all through Black history back to the continent. It's been the organizations that we've created that have made these lasting imprints, and I think that going forward, as we start to look at things, we need to look at improving organizations, and I think that it will be the seat of Black excellence. That we don't, not just unity, us all being together won't be enough, because we're not all gonna get along. We're not gonna see the eye to eye.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not gonna like each other.
Nope.
But if we have organizations built where we've accommodated for that, where we're not gonna agree here, how do we make decisions when we don't agree? What's the best? What's our process? As we start looking in that direction, I think that's where we'll start to see the kind of progress that we want to make.
Absolutely. So, y'all, we've literally created entire things out of nothing. We don't need much. All we need is our intention. We need the passion. We need the focus. We need the guidance and the eldership. We need the spirit of the youth, so that we can improve our situation. Because everybody I know is tired. Everybody I know is frazzled and got a lot going on and got too much going on. But also there's a lot of really good positive things. That's one of the reasons why I even have this show, because I was like, I got too much great stuff going on with people around me. I have to be able to share this so that people can, in the hopes, at least be inspired.
Right.
At the very least be inspired. And at the very most, go out and do something with that inspiration.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So thank y'all for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Freaking rock.
Awesome.
Keith ain't ready for this one. Thanks again for rocking with me. I know y'all enjoyed this show. Thanks again to my fantastic guests / panelists extraordinaire. I appreciate your intelligence, your wisdom, your clarity, your incisiveness, and your love for our people. That's why I wanted you all to come on, and y'all delivered just as I expected. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Thank you to Brother Kevin Powell for this powerful book. I haven't quite finished it yet. I referenced it a couple of times here in this episode. The title of the book is called My Mother, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and the Last Stand of the Angry White Man. I probably got another chapter or so left. And I have a lot of thoughts about this book, and I actually would like to sit down and have a conversation with Brother Kevin Powell about this. So I'm gonna have to reach out to his people, see if we can't get him on TiTi Talks, so we can have a conversation about this book, because I think it's extremely important, extremely powerful. It's coming from a position of love and accountability, and just that analysis and wisdom that comes with living. And I appreciate his perspective. I'm also reading The Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And I'm going to sit down and have a powerful conversation with a homeboy of mine. He and I already been talking about it, so I can't wait to finish that book so he and I can talk about it. He's already done with it. He's going crazy. This is definitely a very interesting, beautiful, and powerful book. In what I'm reading, I'm probably about a third of the way through. I'm really trying to finish it, but I have so many projects and so much stuff going on, but it's going to get done very soon. I look forward to connecting with all of y'all out into the interwebs, and as usual, peace.